Nonprofit Economic Development. We're so pleased to have you, as you can see.
I mean, my goodness.
Yes.
They told me there'd be about 50 or 60 people here. And they said there'll be about 50 or 60 people, but be on your toes.
Thank you for coming. Our natural resources drive our economy for the nation, for the state, for our local, through energy impact, etc. You will hear many questions and comments today on all of our natural resources. We ask for the same respect for coal-fired power plants as we do for those renewable energies. They're all important, but our community happens to be based on natural resources. So please, we ask for your respect and regulations. I know you will be discussing sage-grouse. That's a key effort in our community and the surrounding communities. I see where Garfield commissioners came also to talk about that. Forewarning. And then also broadband is a key infrastructure. So thank you for having your agencies of DOLA, OIT, and OEDIT. I know too many acronyms, but you know what I'm speaking of. That's important that we have leadership on broadband. That is our infrastructure for the future. Please, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Audrey. And then, each of those issues, I mean, I'll wait till the questions come because I'm sure they all will come up. But it's just an arc. I got a master's in geology a long time ago, but I was in hard rock, in mineral geology. I think it was close as we could find. I'm the only governor in the history of the United States that actually was a practicing. I worked 5 years in the oil and gas business when I first came out west permanently. And I understand it. I understand the balancing act and how difficult it is between extraction industries and our environment, right? And that there are competing needs there that are very difficult to balance. And when I was a geologist, I spent a bunch of time on this. Every time you do a mining, you find a new deposit or potential deposit. A big part of whether this was worth pursuing was the dynamics of the community and whether it was possible to even consider putting a mine in these various places. We're working real hard. I'm now the chair of what's called the Western Governors Association. So these are all the Western governors. And what we've been trying to do is work with industry in each of the regulatory areas and get to a point where we can get the Republican governors and the Democratic governors, right, to agree to the same regulatory framework, right, so that we can go to the extraction industries, to the environmental groups, to Washington and say, listen, we've worked with our local communities and this is a framework we think is fair. There's a lot of what we just did. We announced the methane regulations around oil and gas. We didn't pull that out of thin air. We were sat at the table for long months. Boy, it's hard being the intermediary between two sides that they're not real happy with each other sometimes. And just to keep the conversation going, say, all right, we're going to find what the compromise is, right? And the compromise is probably not going to be perfect for anybody, but it's going to allow us to keep moving forward. And I think that was a big part of the methane regulation, was having the oil and gas industry at the table, making sure that their voice was heard. And now as we go through the details of rulemaking, we're going to make sure that some of the smaller operators don't get pushed to the margin, and make sure we take their interests as well. But anyway, Roger, I get that balance is crucial. And if this is, I mean, if you look at the state of Colorado, 51, 52 out of 64 counties are either agricultural or mining or extraction of one sort or another, right? Those are the major industries in 75–80% of our counties. So we obviously have a serious obligation to make sure we balance out the competing needs in those areas.
Hello, Governor Hickenlooper. My name is Brandy Meek. I'm the chair of the Moffat County Republican Party, and I represent Colorado counties with a population of less than 100,000 at the state executive level. As such, I talk to a lot of the rural counties here in Colorado, and we all kind of have the same sentiment that all of Colorado is not being represented by you. I had high hopes when you came into office that that would not be the case. However, it seems that every piece of legislation that's put on your desk from this liberal legislature this last session was passed by you. And as governor, it's your job to create a checks and balances system for rural Colorado. Because as you mentioned, most of Colorado counties are rural. As far as here locally, we're getting We're getting it from every aspect. Not only is it the energy that we're suffering from 252 and 1365, the full effects of which we have not even begun to realize. But also because of the gun legislation that went through, a lot of our local hunting guys have noticed decreased numbers in the number of hunters that have come in and outfitters and things. And then the sage grouse thing on top of that, that attacks our agricultural base. So we're getting it from 3 different directions. And I would urge you, this next legislative session, please represent all of Colorado, not just the urban center. Thank you.
So I hear that clearly, and you know, I'll just be blunt. No one's ever accused me of being a really good politician or think, you know, my goal last session was to try and figure out, everyone said, well, you got Democratic House, Democratic Senate, you know, you're gonna have to veto a bunch of stuff. And I said, well, if I'm any good, I should be able to negotiate the more negative portions of those bills out of them and get something in that's bearable, right? That there's some sort of a compromise. And clearly, and this is, I've heard this from all sectors, I've heard this from urban communities, you know, once you start negotiating, sometimes on certain bills, you're going to end up with a bill, no matter what the compromise is still a bad bill. And rather than negotiating, they're all just saying, you know, don't do that, or if you do it, I'm going to veto it. So I'm learning as I go. Some of this stuff, as we went and tried to get the facts, well, universal background checks, right? When I was around the state, I kept talking to people and didn't have a problem. We got it in there. I mean, it was really in a response to the shootings in Aurora a year and a half ago. And once we got a pretty simple universal background check bill together, we couldn't get no Republicans would support it, and most elected officials didn't want to go near it. And they kept saying, and I took it at face value that crooks aren't stupid, and that why put honest people, why they would make them wait 20 minutes for a background check and spend $10, waste their money for something that's not going to do any good. So after a couple of months, I went back and checked with the Department of Public Safety for 2012, for the previous year, and we got to about half all the gun purchases. And to see if we did all those background checks, did we catch anyone? Was it worth it? Was it worth it? And so these are the facts. This is what Teddy would call, these are the facts. So in 2012, just getting half the background checks, there were 38 people convicted of homicide who tried to buy a gun, 133 people convicted of sexual assault who tried to buy a gun, right? 620 burglars, 1,300 people convicted of felony assault. That's where someone usually goes to the hospital. They tried to buy guns. There were 420 people who had judicial restraining orders not to see their girlfriend or their boyfriend, and they tried to buy a gun and we stopped them. And just in case you think crooks really aren't stupid, 236 people, when they came to pick up their gun, we arrested them for an outstanding warrant. Right? So, again, I don't think we did a very good job of communicating that, and it became a big partisan battle around the Second Amendment. And certainly that was the last thing from my mind. We weren't trying to take anybody's guns away from them. I mean, my son Teddy and I did hunter safety 2 years ago. He still hasn't been able to hit a living thing yet, but he's watched me kill some birds. And I think our goal was really, this seemed to make Colorado safer. And those people convicted of trying to buy guns were not just in Denver or Colorado Springs. They were all over the state. And I don't have the statistics for, how many there were in Moffett County or other Westfield counties, but there were a number of violent people that tried to buy guns and we stopped them. So for $10, I mean, it only takes 1 or 2 or 3 of those people to do real damage. So the $10 a head. But anyway, so that's one bill that everyone kind of hates and is furious with. And yet I thought the facts justified it. We did not do a good job of getting the facts out. And I'm also willing to agree some of those other bills didn't have as good supporting facts.